You again. Um, I don't know how many times we've done this. We've done it quite a few times, and it's just been a joy to do. And I thank you all for showing up this afternoon. We're going to have another one tomorrow at 8 o'clock Eastern Time. It'll be very similar, but you're welcome to join then as well. So how we've been doing this, I've been giving up office updates and introducing a staff person, and then we have a teaching moment, and then we'll open it up, as Alicia said, to questions. And so I'll just start off with talking about office updates. Here in Michigan, as for many of you, we are still, after all this time, still at stay-at-home orders, which means our office still remains closed. We have a very minimal, just a few people at the office keeping the essentials going. And it's just been amazing that we've been able to keep the lessons going. Some of the core of what we do as a ministry all this time going, and pretty much without too many hiccups. And I hope you haven't noticed too many from our end. Many of staff is really ready to get back to the office. You know, I'm downstairs in my home. It's very nice, but it can make for a long day. I'm more one that really enjoys the interaction, the spontaneous conversations. I love to talk about what I'm processing in my mind, and it's a bit hard to do down here. So we're really ready to get back to what we were doing, but we also want to bear in mind that when we do that, we need to do it safely, with prudence, and with wisdom. So we'll keep you informed as we go along and where we're at. A couple of other things. This past week, we've noticed that our volume has gone. You know, our lessons come in through the mail. This has happened before. We don't know if it's associated with the mail slowing down. We've noticed that. So for those of you, that are doing extra lessons during the week beyond the standard one, we've had to put a pause on doing the extra lessons and just going down to one a week. I'm confident that this is a temporary measure, and we'll keep you informed as soon as the mail volume starts going back up. But with that, we have a positive, is that for quite a long time, we were not able to process new student enrollments. We have many students that want to come on board. They want to start interacting with you, start digging into their lessons, and we just have not been able to bring any new folks on, any new prisoners on. But this past week, we've been able to start doing that again, get at the backlog of those and get them onboarded. So we're very thankful for that. So at this point, I'm going to introduce you to a staff person. This is nice that we can do this, because normally when I travel, I can't bring people with me. So today I am going to introduce you to Joni. Joni's been with us for a while, and I'm pleased that it's her turn to do it. So why don't you take it from here, Joni?
All right. Well, I'm very excited to be here to get to see some faces, to some names that I recognize. My title, I'm the Volunteer Relations Manager here at Crossroads. And that means I do a lot of different things. I support mostly and am involved with helping all the departments recruit volunteers, onboard or get them started with training and recognition events. Like I was involved with the summit that we had originally scheduled in April, along with Alicia. We put a lot of time and energy into that, and we'll see how the pandemic goes and whether or not that gets rescheduled for September. Tentatively rescheduled for September, we'll have to wait and see. So in addition to that, I also work very closely with Doug. I'm one of the lucky folks that can call Doug my boss. And so I get to support Doug in travel plans, when he's getting ready to do presentations, with the ambassador program that we are kicking off in a big way this year. So I get to have a lot of fun. I have been a volunteer in the volunteer management world for about probably 16, 17 years now. I love volunteers. You are the folks who really make the world go around in so many ways. And when I think about the loneliness that is so epidemic in our prison systems, even more so now, it really, really touches my heart when I can think about the fact that all of you are taking your time and your energy, not only to review the lessons, but to write a letter and to let these folks know, who many of whom may not have had a lot of people offer them unconditional love, but to know that you are letting them know that they are loved. God loves them, that there is mercy and grace and forgiveness available to them. And I just want to applaud you for doing that, because I just can't imagine there's any greater calling than letting someone know that God is there and God loves them, and that people are thinking of them outside. So thank you all for what you do. Doug asked me, or one of my coworkers said, one of the things you can do, Joni, is share a fun fact. So I'll share a couple fun facts. I grew up on a farm. I was blessed to have horses. So one of the things I used to do as a kid is we would play rodeo, and we would get bucked off of horses for fun. We would have contests to see who could stay on a bucking horse the longest. Once I hit 50, I realized that probably wasn't the brightest thing to be doing, because now I feel it. But I continued to love being active. And when I was in college, I played women's football for 3 years. I was a quarterback. And so I still love being outside and around nature and being active. So I want to thank you all for being here. And that's all.
Thanks, Joni.
Sure.
Hey, so one of the advantages to doing Zoom, and one of the things that, or a few of the things that we've heard, is that you as mentors who are not close to the office, that can't come but are more remote, one of the things that you have enjoyed is that some of the details, some of the inner workings, and some of the things that we don't put out in the Just for Mentors, and you just wouldn't know, because since I've started here, one of the biggest things that I have seen occur is that for you as mentors, the ownership of the ministry, your ministry that you as mentors have taken. And so today I was just going to share some tidbits, some details. Why don't you pull up the first slide, Alicia? Some of the things you wouldn't know that we can share today. So as it comes up, the first slide is the percentages of the students in what type of facilities that they're in. So where are our students incarcerated? Where are they coming from? And there's different types of incarcerations facilities that people are in. Just on this list here, it's the county jail, the FCI, that's the Federal Corrections Institute. And then we have halfway houses, there's military institutions, there's private institutions, prisons that contract with the state, such as GEO is one. They're more of a controversial in many places. And then we have the state prisons. So as you can see from this chart that Alicia pulled together, the majority of our students come from within state institutions across the country. Texas is our number one state for students. You may see that with your addresses that you see. So it's almost 75% state, and then 15% in county, more localized, institutions. And an interesting thing about that is that, with this COVID pandemic that we're having, you may have seen it in papers or other writings that, there are groups that are asking, why can't we release the prisoners? We need to release the prisoners. It's a hazardous environment. That has been happening extensively in our county jails, especially in regards to those that have not been, through the court yet. They haven't been through trial. They're letting them out. So the jail population has decreased dramatically during this period. It's not that they're not going to go through court. It's just that they're going to be, at home awaiting trial. That is not the case for our state and federal. They have stayed relatively even. They're not letting people out. Overall, they're not letting people out early. They're just having them stay in place. Here in Michigan, they're just not transferring between prisons. In fact, I was just talking to the state prison that I volunteer with yesterday. Nobody is being transferred in and out. The National Guard is coming in to do testing. Thankfully, that prison does not have any COVID problems, but there are other institutions in our state that are being dramatically affected by it. So total number of our students is right around 28,000, which is just incredible. We reached 28,000 students last year. Why don't we try the next slide? So the age of our students. Sometimes I get asked this question because sometimes we can kind of formulate a guess when we're looking at our lessons. But what's interesting about this is that our student population correlates very evenly with the overall incarcerated population in the United States. It's almost even. So we're tracking right with the age groups. As you can see, the ages 36 to 40, we're almost even. So I found that real interesting that we're not skewed either way. We're just following the same age pattern as the prison system. Why don't we try the next one? Okay, and then comparing genders, so male and female students compared to the United States incarcerated population. This is a little bit different because typically what I tell people is that there for every male, so there's 9 males to every female that's incarcerated. Of course, my sayings always goes, we as men cause the most problems, and that's why that is. But what you'll see is that we have a few, 10 or 12 percentage points less males than the overall population. And this is the interesting thing to me is that we're running right about 25% of our students are female, whereas in the general population, it's just 10%, which I'm really pleased about. Especially when we think about the female population is growing much quicker than the male population. So that's just a little bit of the tidbits that we see here that we can share. And so then I'm going to shift. I wanted to talk today about something that is often on my mind, and you'll see me write about it. And it affects, I would say, every student that comes to your doorstep. As many of you know, Hendrina and I have, my wife Hendrina and I have been volunteering in the state prison for many years. We do what's called Houses of Healing. It's a cognitive thinking type curriculum. We've been doing that for quite a long time. We've done many classes. And those classes, they go through, they're not Christian based, but they are definitely a wonderful avenue for us to share our story and our faith. And but it follows many of the same things that the Bible do. It talks about forgiveness, and it talks about forgiving and anger and all the emotions that we all go through. But today I wanted to just talk about grieving, because I think for sure that all of us have grieved at some point in our lives. Some of us are probably or maybe grieving right now something. And certainly in the future, we will all be grieving for something that arises in our lives. And I'll tell you a story about Carl. Carl was a gentleman who was in the group that I was just doing just before the doors closed there. We had been talking about grief in the group, and it was really our second week in doing it, because we usually land on there for 2 weeks, because it's such a powerful emotion that so many of our students, so many of the prison population just don't talk about. They don't, prison isn't a good place to process grief. And often what we have found is that many of the men that are in front of us and many of our students don't correlate the emotions that they're going through with the term grieving. And so we were talking that night, and it was a very heavy night. And Carl, who's very articulate, very smart, was sitting over in the corner really, really quiet. And he was not going to intersect into the conversation. But at the very end of the conversation, he spoke up and he said, I've been incarcerated for 30 years, and to survive, I don't look at my grief. But then he went on to say, but every so often, I open it up and I have to look at it. I have a good cry, and then I have to close it. He went on to say that the reason that he has to open it up is because it gives him a sense of humanity. And I found that very, it just sat with me, and I just dwelled on it for days, and I'm still dwelling on it, what he meant by that. That he had to open it up every so often for a sense of humanity. And I thought that was really profound. And I think about our students with that, because as I've told other people, and I've seen many, many student correspondence come across my desk, and I don't think I've ever heard a student say that they were grieving. But I know that every prisoner is grieving something. And so I think about, well, where do we see the grieving come out in our students? And I think I see it when they're expressing frustrations. I see it when they're expressing concern for their children or their loved ones at home. I see it in their words when they say they're struggling, and they may show it in their anger. I mean, sometimes we'll see, frustrations or anger coming through in their words. And it may show in their frustrations towards others. They'll blame others. And most certainly we see it when they talk about the correction system that they're involved in. And what they're grieving is that they're probably number one thing that they're grieving is that their loss of freedom. Or they may grieve the harm that they've caused their family, or the ones that they have caused harm in their crime, or the harm they've caused with their family they've left behind. And I've seen this often, and this happened to me when I was incarcerated. And while I was incarcerated, I lost a loved one. And that pain inside my own self has never really gone away. But also what they're grieving is the loss of what could have been, the loss of dreams. And I think for all of us, we can relate with that in some way. And so I want to just share a tip in kind of in line with the Just for Mentors that come to your home every month. And I wrote a little something here. I said, though your student may not directly express they are grieving, be mindful of this when they are sharing pieces of themselves. Reflect on their words or statements that they shared and express you sense they may be grieving. And what I'm saying is that even if they are not saying the word that they're grieving, it's okay to read into their words and say, I sense that you may be grieving. It's okay to say that. It's okay to talk about grieving. In fact, I would encourage you to do that, knowing that each of us grieves in our own way, and we all have our own timelines. But in the end, healing comes through hope for the future. And I want to end with a verse from Lamentations. Lamentations 3 says, but this I call to mind, and therefore I have hope. The steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. His mercies never come to an end. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. So I just want to say thank you for allowing me to share that. The next time we meet, Eliezer, who some of you have met, will be presenting student art. As many of you know, that we have an art show that travels around the country that's been really had to pause right now. So Ellie's figured out a way, I hope, to be able to share that with all of you next time. And he's really excited to do that. So I hope you can come for that. And so